Starting off this list, in at number 10 we have LRP5 mutation. Back in 1994, scientists discovered a genetic mutation known as LRP5. This is a gene that regulates the production and release of protein, which means your body could produce more protein into your bones or less protein into your bones. It plays a major role in your bone density. Well, this mutation was discovered when a man was in a serious car crash, but after he got x-rays, there didn't seem to be any fractures or broken bones when there should have been. Because of the LRP5 mutation, this man's bones were actually 8 times more dense than the average person. Also, it has been discovered that this has been genetically found in this guy's family tree. Like, his family members have this condition. This man has family members who was unable to get a hip surgery because doctors were unable to screw anything into the bones.
In our 9th spot, we had the human Z attempts. In 1967, scientists in China were working on creating a human-chimp mix. Sadly, not much information about these experiments have been disclosed to the public. But rumor has it that the experiments didn't really work. They wanted to basically create a chimp that could talk fluently in whatever language it was taught. Then in 1981, they tried this experiment again. They impregnated a female chimpanzee with human sperm. Turns out, the chimp did manage to get pregnant by it, but sadly passed away 3 months later due to complications. Coming in at number 8, we have the rat mouse. Scientists at the Salk Institute have found a way to grow the pancreatic tissue of a mouse inside of a rat. The mouse pancreas was able to grow inside of rats successfully. So they grew these new pancreases from mouse stem cells that were then placed in the bodies of the rats. And then when the pancreases were complete, they transplanted them back into the mice. Now the biggest thing about this experiment is that this technique could reverse diabetes in the mice. So they hope that one day they can grow organs inside the bodies of different animals, and then you transplant those organs into humans to cure diabetes. Of course, there's still so much work to be done on this. The last thing they want is to grow a human organ inside of an animal and then have the recipient's body reject it. In our 7th spot, we have the killer bees. Did you know that killer bees were accidentally created by scientists? If they're out here creating bees that threaten the ecosystem, then who's to say they won't create animals that do the same? Basically, this all started in the 1950s. A biologist was commissioned by the Brazilian government to create a species of bees that would increase honey production. But along the way, things went wrong. The biologist himself didn't have much experience with animal breeding. In the end, bees from southern Africa and local Brazilian honeybees mated, and it produced these angry killer bees. And then of course, thousands of these bees just accidentally escaped. Now they get their name because when pissed off, they have been known to chase people down for more than a quarter mile. And on top of that, their stings are very painful. These bees are also aggressive towards other bees as well. So it puts them at risk, and now we're kinda just stuck with them. In our 6th spot today, we have the human mouse. In the late 90s, 3 doctors started doing experiments to try and create human body parts in a lab. One of these experiments involved growing a human ear on the back of a mouse. So they did this by creating an ear-shaped scaffolding and putting cells of cartilage from a cow on it. They then put the mouse under anesthetic and placed this ear under its skin. Crazily enough, the mouse's body fed the cow cartilage cells. The scaffolding dissolved and the mouse grew this artificial shape of a human ear. But it was only the outside of an ear. Okay, it didn't work, there was no eardrum. Now you might be wondering why they did this. Well, their hope is that this will help plastic surgeons when reconstructing human ears for their patients. So they would create this ear on the mouse and then graft it onto the person. So you'd have an ear that is part mouse, part cow. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the goat with human milk. I swear I didn't make this up, it's real and I'm a little disturbed. But basically, scientists have figured a way for goats to produce human breast milk. They did this by transferring human breast milk enzymes and proteins into goat embryos. In the end, they found that the milk the goats were producing wasn't 100% human, but it contained 60% of the lysosome and lactoferrin found in human milk. Now, why do they want goats producing human breast milk? Well, it could feed and save babies in need. Plus, it would have a longer shelf life. Would you try this milk? Let me know in the comments below. I've heard breast milk is pretty sweet, but I don't think I want to try it. Coming in at number 4, we have the Belgian Super Cow. Now, you guys know how much I love cows. And if you didn't know, then hi, my name is Lindsay and I love cows. But this thing is terrifying. It's monstrous, okay? It's super ripped and it's just massive. The Belgian super cows were created back in the 1800s when Belgian scientists and farmers mixed native cattle with shorthorn cattle. Then over the time, they would select the biggest and strongest offsprings of each variety and then breed them together. So on and so on, bam! You got a super cow, which is definitely the biggest and strongest, and I understand why they call it the super cow. Like, just look at this beast, okay? It could crush anyone. In our 3rd spot, we have the Enviro Pig. So pig waste is actually pretty toxic. I mean, if you've seen the Simpsons movie, then you'd know all about it. I mean, that was a bit of an exaggeration, but still. Anyways, pig's waste contains really high levels of phosphorus. This phosphorus ends up in lakes and rivers and oceans and can cause a boom of algae. So scientists were trying to come up with a way for pigs to have less toxic waste, hence the creation of the Enviro Pig. Enviro pigs are pigs with up to 65% less phosphorus in their excrements. This pig was first created in 1999 at the University of Guelph's farm in Canada. This pig had its phytase gene attached to a piece of mouse DNA. Now, it's really complicated to explain, but here's an explanation, and I quote, "The genetically altered pig was created using genetic material from a mouse and an E. coli bacterium to reduce phosphorus in the pig's feces. In the end, it made the pig excrete fewer pollutants." Moving on to number 2, we have the pig with human blood. Now, you're probably noticing a trend by now. Pigs and mice are the scientists' test subjects of choice. Researchers at Mayo Clinic in Minnesota have managed to create pigs made out of human blood. So the pigs have human blood pumping through their veins. Not only that, but some of the cells in the blood merge together to create pig-human cell hybrids. Now, the reason behind this all is to allow scientists to study how viral infections can transfer from animals to humans. And in our number 1 spot today, we have Oliver the chimp. In the 1970s, there was a performing chimpanzee that received a lot of attention. His name was Oliver. Now, Oliver was really different from other chimps for a number of reasons. The main being that Oliver might have been a successful mix between a human and a chimp. Yeah, you heard me. A lot of doctors and scientists are convinced that Oliver was a humanzee. It's believed that they inseminated a female chimp with male sperm, and Oliver was the offspring. Now let's take a look at the facts. Oliver didn't look like other chimps. In fact, he had a more human-like appearance. He had a flatter face than other chimpanzees, and he walked on 2 feet instead of all 4s. He also preferred human females over female chimpanzees, and he understood humans very well. So could it be that Oliver was actually half human, half chimp?
Kicking off the list at number 10, Enviro Pig. The Enviro Pig was a transgenic pig developed in Canada at the University of Guelph, home of the griffins and the Frankenswine. Awesome, gotta love it. Welcome to Guelph. Scientists from South China's Agricultural University originally wrote a paper about the transgenic pig that can grow faster than normal and, on top of that, have less of an impact on the environment. Lovely, live fast little piggies. Now normally these hogs would release a high percentage of nitrogen and phosphorus because they haven't evolved to digest those nutrients in their meals. These nutrients end up in their waste, which subsequently ends up in our lakes and rivers and then in our mouths and eyes and nose. It would pollute the water with phosphorus, and that's when the Enviro Pig scuffles in to save the day. Scientists alter their DNA in order to produce more phytase in order for Frankenswine to fully digest all the nutrients instead of leaving us the crappy ones, pun intended.
And at number 9 we have the MFS syndrome, which is the Marfan syndrome. It is a genetic disorder that affects the connective tissues in your body. It actually affects people differently. People who have this syndrome typically have very flexible joints, but it also comes with scoliosis, serious complications involving the heart and aorta, and it also can affect the lungs, eyes, bones, and covering of the spinal cord. 25% of this condition is inherited from a parent, while 25% of the time it is a new mutation. Right now there is no known cure for Marfan syndrome, but there are treatments that help prolong life. Before preventative treatments, the average lifespan was between about 30 and 40 years old, and now people with this condition can have a normal life expectancy. Next up, number 8, we have epidermal dysplasia verticornis, which is otherwise known as tree man syndrome. Well, it is a very rare autoimmune recessive hereditary skin disorder that is actually associated with skin cancer.
2, 3, 4, 5, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the thumb. It should be the thumb, and some of the tip of the finger on the surface. I can see that.
This is a very debilitating human mutation that is extremely rare that results in uncontrolled HPV infections that result in the growth of what looks like a very scaly bark, from a tree. There are no treatments for this because it's so rare and it doesn't affect enough people, to get funding behind it. There's only a handful of people in the world with this very rare condition. Moving into number 7, we have Proteus syndrome, which is a very rare condition that causes human bones, skin, and other tissues to overgrow. This syndrome is also known as the elephant man syndrome. Yeah, a lot of you guys probably heard of it. There have just been over 200 cases of the syndrome worldwide in history, and saying that right now it's estimated that just 120 people with that condition are still alive. With almost 8 billion people in the world, that is extremely rare. In 2011, researchers were able to determine the cause of the Proteus syndrome. Patients with this condition have a mutation in there. Well, the mutation is the AKT1 gene. Is pretty much a gene that controls your body's growth factors. The most famous case of this condition is Joseph Merrick. This is the guy right here. He is known as the original elephant man. He became famous when he was seen in freak shows. Merrick was able to live with this condition for 27 years. Number 6, we have progeria, also known as Hutchinson-Gilford progeria syndrome, or HGPS for short. It's a very generic condition that causes the child's body to age fast. People who suffer from progeria are said to age about 8 times the normal rate. With that being said, most people don't live past the age of 13 years old. There's a very famous girl who has progeria. She is a YouTuber. Her name is Adelie Rose, and she's one of the most inspirational people ever.
Hey guys, it's me, Dolly. Welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm going to be doing things I do in my...
She's pretty funny, and she has such a big personality and such a positive look on life. Moving into number 5, here we have a girl who was born with 2 faces, and this was due to a very rare mutation. She suffers from craniofacial duplication, which is a rare congenital disorder in which part of the face is duplicated on the head. It doesn't seem like experts believe that this is due to an unborn twin, maybe a parasitic twin or something, because there are no additional bodies or anything else additional than just the face. This little girl was born to a very poor family who are farm laborers in a village in New Delhi. The little girl has an extra pair of eyes, nose, and lips. The girl is able to blink all of her eyes, and she can feed out of both mouths. I feel really bad for this family and of course this poor little girl. She has seen a doctor and they say that she's actually fine. She sleeps, eats, cries like a normal baby, which just sounds so insane to me. Next up, number 4, we have another very rare mutation of the hands and feet. Well, this right here is a picture of a 6-year-old boy from China. His name is Li Jinping, and he was born with 15 fingers and 16 toes, and as you can see on his hands, a lot of his fingers are actually fused together. The condition is known as polydactyl, which just means someone who is born with 1 or more extra fingers. Doctors at the Shangjiang Hospital of China Medical University in Shenyang was able to successfully remove all of the additional fingers and toes in a surgical operation that lasted more than 5 hours. Moving into number 3, let's talk about hypertrichiosis, aka the werewolf syndrome. This is real.
Today, Larry Gomez is a minor celebrity. He's made his appearance his trademark, and he's begun to feel comfortable in his skin.
This condition causes the human body to have an abnormal, amount of hair growth all over their body. Hypertrichosis can also be present at birth or even developed later in life. Julia Pastrana was one of the most famous people with this condition. Here she is right here, and she was a part of many freak shows and became famous in the 1800s. Scientists believe this is caused by mutation of the A22 band of chromosome 8, meaning that this may not be inherited through the genes. This could happen to anyone, but it's extremely rare. Alright, number 2, we have alien hand syndrome. That could be due to a mutation or something neurologically. Alien hand syndrome, I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard of this one. Well, it's when your limbs, they just start moving on their own. Like you would randomly just raise your hands up in the air, or you would pick up something and you didn't even tell your brain to do that. People who have alien hand syndrome, in which I can't believe that this is actually the name for it, like the scientific name for it, well, it mostly affects people's left hand. Well, that kind of sucks for me because I am left-handed. Right now, there is no cure for the alien hand syndrome. Finally, number 1, we have polychoria, aka double pupils. I don't know why I got freaked out when I was doing the research for this one. I was seeing all of these pictures. It's just not a normal thing. In fact, it's super rare. It's a pathological condition where one of the eyes have multiple pupil openings in the iris. Let me show you guys a few examples of people who have this condition and the way it can appear in someone's eyes. First up, we have this. Here we can see a double pupil, but it's kind of not even there, it's very small, and I'm not sure how much lighter objects that this person's able to see. I think it was taken before dilation, because take a look at this picture right here, this is the same eye, so when dilated, the pupil, it kind of looks normal. Here's another image of a double pupil. This one is more obvious, and here's what it looks like dilated. The pupil is absolutely massive.
Starting off this countdown, we have the rat pigs. The Salk Institute for Biological Studies in the US has been known to run a number of crossbreeding experiments. One was performed on rats and pigs. The team of scientists decided to take stem cells from rats and inject them into pig blastocysts. However, this failed, and I mean, I'm not surprised. Rats and pigs have different gestation times, and genetically they are very different. But imagine a pig that looked like a rat. Okay, that is terrifying.
In our number 9 spot today, we have web-spinning goats. While many of us have dreamed of becoming Spider-Man, it turns out the only ones who get that luxury are goats. Researchers from the University of Wyoming have developed a way to incorporate a spider's silk spinning genes into goat's milk. This would then allow scientists to be able to harvest the silk proteins from the milk in order to use them. You might be wondering why, and that's a super valid question because it seems pretty random, but as it turns out, it actually might have some pretty exceptional uses. Spider silk is a super valuable naturally occurring material because it not only is strong, but it is flexible as well. These types of proteins can be used for medical things like making artificial ligaments and tendons or eye sutures, but it can also be used in other ways like to help build parachute cords or bulletproof vests somehow. Why didn't we just get that silk from the OG source? Well, you'd need a ton of spiders, and when you put a bunch of them together, they usually just kill each other, so naturally, goats were the next option?
Are you tired of losing your pet rabbits every time there's a blackout? Well, fear no more, this horrific treatment may just solve that problem. Back in 2000, an artist by the name of Eduardo Cac created this glow-in-the-dark rabbit in collaboration with French geneticist Louis-Marie Hodenbein. It was referred to as the GFP bunny, and it was this cute little albino floof that would glow under any blue light. Now, this glowing gal is named Alba, and what Hodenbein did was take the GFP gene found in a jellyfish, a certain type called Aquaria victoria, which rhymes, which is always awesome, but it would glow green when exposed to blue light. Now, Alba was a one-of-a-kind experiment, and I used the word "was" with sorrow. Alba sadly passed away in 2002, but her death has brought up a few questions. A US reporter called experts in France, where Hodenbein worked, and they were told that Alba had passed, but they didn't provide any substantial evidence onto how. No reason was given as to why this rabbit passed away. Now, you would think the world's first glowing rabbit would deserve more than, I don't know, maybe a voicemail to say, hey, it's dead, see ya. Maybe she's still alive. Maybe Hydra has her in some basement. Only time will tell. We'll see.
In our number 7 spot today, we have banana vaccines. Remember as a kid when you were sick and had to get medicine and it sucked, but then you found out it was the banana flavored kind and suddenly things weren't so bad? Well, this is absolutely nothing like that. Scientists have been able to successfully engineer different foods like bananas, lettuce, potatoes, and carrots to produce different vaccines, but apparently bananas are the most ideal candidate for this sort of thing. What's crazy is that with bananas, when an altered form of the virus is injected into the banana sapling, it ends up acting almost exactly like a traditional vaccine. Not the mRNA one that we're becoming familiar with the pandemic, but the kind used for things like hepatitis and cholera. This is because once the banana sapling is injected, the virus's genetic material then becomes a permanent part of the plant's cells. From here, as the bananas grow, the cells of it produce the virus proteins, but not the infectious part of the virus that makes you sick. So your body can now learn these proteins pathogens and then build up the antibodies needed in order to fight it. Honestly, this one seems a little weird on the surface, but I am all for the idea of vaccines one day not being given through needles. I don't like bananas either though, so guess I'm shit out of luck.
Number 6. Spicy tomatoes. Picture this, you're at a barbecue, you're eating burgers with your peers, you're having a great time, and then somebody next to you starts coughing and you ask if they're okay, and they're like, oh, I'm fine, it's just, this tomato is just oh so spicy. Huh? Yeah, spicy tomatoes, they're a thing, let's talk about it. Scientists in Brazil and Ireland have cracked the condiment code, or so they thought. Using CRISPR, they created the first ever tomato that is naturally spicy. The trick is in its DNA. Tomatoes already carry the appropriate genes to produce capsaicin, which is the same ingredient that makes your mouth burn every time you eat a hot chili pepper. Some are on board with the spicy tomato, dare I say they're even excited to use this for some Saturday spicy salsa. Honestly, I'm all set for this. I eat a junior chicken and I'm like, oh, can I get a glass of milk? I'm not good with spice at all. It's all fun and games until a Greek salad lights up your lips.
In our number 5 spot today, we have DIY CRISPR-Cas9 kits. If you haven't heard of the controversial Josiah Zayner, he is the eccentric biochemist who is the owner of a startup company called The Odin. Josiah is no stranger to the world of genetic engineering, and in fact, he has done some experiments on himself when he injected himself with modified cells to become more muscular. He did this by removing the gene for myostatin, and without this gene, muscles keep growing. Regardless of this interesting experiment, what I really want to talk about is how The Odin has released CRISPR-Cas9 kits that allow you to experiment with genetic modifications yourself. I'm sure this is probably harmless, but it just seems like this kind of power should stay in the hands of those who know exactly what they're doing. Maybe that's just the skeptic in me, but there's something about a DIY genetic modification kit made by a guy who tried to modify his own muscles that just seems a little weird. No judgment, just not my personal cup of tea.
Number 4. Salmon. This photo shows a genetically engineered salmon next to farmed Atlantic salmon. They're both the same age, they're both 18 months old, but the one in the back looks like it's been bench pressing for 9 months. It's clearly much larger, and that's because Aqua Bounty's genetically modified salmon grows at double the speed. No more fake IDs for those salmon, they're getting in quick. Canadian scientists took the gene that regulates these growth hormones from salmon, combined it with an ocean pout's DNA, and now we have the ability to simply grow these fish up a few years. Now the taste is the same. In fact, apparently it's even better. This modification gives the Atlantic salmon a fresh taste all year round. The same company that I mentioned earlier, Aqua Bounty, also plans on using these fish to mass produce eggs at its research hatchery in PEI. They then want to ship these eggs to Panama, where they'll grow again twice as fast, but this time in a land-based facility, where they'll wait approval by the FDA. The thing is, neither Canada or the US has done nearly enough safety trials. It's just Aqua Bounty, so we really don't know any long-term effects that this will have on us or the ecosystem. We can't have 9-foot salmon swimming up our rivers every day. It's a bit alarming, I think.
In our number 3 spot today, we have Dolly the sheep. You may have heard of Dolly the sheep before, and that is because she made history in 1996 when she was born. This is because she was the very first mammal to be cloned from an adult somatic cell. The process of cloning to create her involved nuclear transfer from a cell taken from the mammary gland. Basically, they transferred the nucleus from the adult cell into an unfertilized premature egg that had its nucleus removed, and boom, cloned sheep. This was huge for the scientific community because of the fact that it not only showed that cloning can be successful in mammals, but also because it showed that a clone organism can be produced from a mature cell from a specific body part. While Dolly made history, she also sadly only lived a relatively short life. She ended up being euthanized just before her 7th birthday because of the fact that she had a progressive lung disease, as well as arthritis, both of which are said to not be linked to her cloning origins. I guess it's kind of cool that Dolly existed, and the fact that we have these scientific abilities is amazing, but there's also something pretty ominous about it. I just hope we use these powers to do something like bringing back extinct animals rather than just some weird mad scientist type stuff.
And in at number 2, Venomous Cabbage. As if cabbage wasn't already not appealing, we've now thrown venom into the mix. Lovely. Venomous Cabbage, why do we need this? Well, it starts with scorpion venom. It's one of their most vital tools when it comes to self-defense, obviously, so taking that gene and combining it with cabbage could limit our use of pesticides, but at the same time, still prevent those fat caterpillars from harming our crops. Hey, if you have a caterpillar problem, just poison them. There you go, guys. Sounds appetizing too. The cabbage would then naturally produce this scorpion poison, so if any pests came along looking to have a work lunch, they would be long gone before they could even leave a Yelp review. Poor little dudes.
In our number 1 spot today, we have CRISPR Babies. This is probably the most well-known case of human genetic engineering, and probably not for the right reasons. On November 25th, 2018, He Jiankui, who is a biophysics researcher, announced announced, here on YouTube, that his team had successfully created the world's first genome-edited babies. These babies, Lulu and Nana, were born from genetically modified embryos that had been made to be resistant to HIV. Here's the thing, no one is arguing about whether or not this could potentially be an amazing thing for people. The argument is about whether or not it is ethically correct to genetically modify a human before they're even able to be a human yet, especially when the potential risks and long-term effects of this kind were completely unknown. This study was also conducted without the public discussion of the scientific community, which again is the source of quite a bit of controversy. In the end, he ended up being sentenced to jail time as well as being forced to pay a fine. Two others he worked alongside were also found guilty for having, quote, forged ethical review documents and misled doctors into unknowingly implanting gene-edited embryos into 2 women. At the end of the day, scientific advancements are very cool and exciting, but not at the cost of doing the right thing the right way.